Bueno, amigos, un placer tremendo y un orgullo tener aquí en Cerebro en los Deportes el nuevo Herald a Frank Mir, doble campeón del peso completo en la UFC y uno de los mejores artistas marciales de todos los tiempos que ha subido al octágono. Frank se está preparando para una pelea de boxeo contra Sean Cunningham, 17 de abril. Y let's start talking, Frank, about this boxing match. Sean Cunningham, how was the camp? Because first you were preparing for Antonio Tarver, and then you knew that everything changed for Sean Cunningham. How you have to adapt from one opponent to this one?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, you know, stylistically, they fight. One's right-handed, you know, and now Cunningham is a right-handed fighter, and compared to what I was preparing for Tarver as a left-handed fighter. Also, Tarver fights at a slower pace, more calculated. Cunningham's a Philadelphia guy who's gritty, Navy guy, fights hard, comes forward, you know what I mean? And so I was working on my conditioning a lot for this fight to be a weapon against Tarver, but really now my conditioning is going to just be a necessity against Cunningham because he can really overwhelm you.
Sean Cunningham have a good fights. I remember the Fury fight. What kind of fight do you expect from him? What thing, for example, in the couple of rounds, what do you expect from him?
Well, I think that the first round or two, Cunningham's going to be cautious. I'm a big, powerful guy, and he doesn't know what I'm bringing to the table because this is my first boxing match. I think he'll come out there, stay behind. He has a very good jab. I think that he'll keep the distance and maintain dominance with the jab and try to maintain range. I think that as he feels more comfortable, as the rounds go on, he'll probably come in and start taking more chances as he sees what he thinks that is developing. And I think that's the game plan that if I was his camp, that I would employ.
Frank, you speak about this. It's your first fight, your first sanctioning fight, regular fight. Why boxing, Frank? Why boxing?
Well, I mean, my father's from Cuba, and boxing's always been a very big part of my heritage. Even though I went the mixed martial arts way because of being born in Vegas and the UFC, taking off when I was 20 years old, it kind of worked out timing-wise that that's the route that I went. But as far as, my admiration for boxing has always been, extremely high. I grew up watching boxing. Then, I didn't grow up watching MMA because it wasn't around until I was 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And so this is an opportunity for me to go out there and test myself and push myself in something that, I have a lot of heritage in.
What your father told you about boxing, our Cuban boxing, what the conversation you have with your fathers?
Well, I mean, my father, and one thing that I really saw, I went down to Cuba in 2015. And one thing I was very proud of, it's funny, I've always considered myself very much of I land on my feet no matter what, And my wife sometimes gets mad at me because I'll go out of town and no hotel rooms are booked and I don't know who I'm meeting and I just make things, I'll just figure it out. And she hates when I say that. I'm like, and she's like, well, so where are you going? I'm like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. What's going to happen when we get there? I'm like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. And so that's always been part of my personality. And then when I went to Cuba, I told her, I said, I've realized where I get it from. Cubans are the most ingenuitive individuals I've ever met. You have cars that they don't have parts that haven't been imported for 50 years. They'll take apart a blender and make a distributor out of it. Mm-hmm. There is no like, well, we can't make it work. You get a Cuban, they'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And they'll understand. And I think that's very much how their boxing is at the same time. They don't have access to the world-class nutrition or the kind of training that they have here in America, but you see how competitive they are in wrestling and judo and boxing. And that comes from just intelligence. I mean, they got guys working out with tires that are strapped up to be a bag, because the mentality is, I'm not just going to lose. I'm going to figure out a way to succeed no matter what my obstacles are.
You've been training whole life because you are an artist in MMA. Different is for you the boxing that you do or you did in MMA are the boxing that you was going to have in this fight. How different is the adjustment?
Well, boxing is closer range. In MMA, we stay a little farther away because of the kicking. Also, to the stance, we turn a little bit more sideways in boxing. We can't really do in MMA because it exposes our calf, And in fact, you saw in Connor's last fight, he stood more in a boxing stance and his opponent took advantage of it, kicked his leg out.
True.
Luckily, in a boxing match, I don't have to worry about that. So I have to worry about the punches from the waist up. Another big difference is kind of the defense. You'll notice in MMA, we can use our forearms to block, but we usually use our distance. You'll see us move our head to get out of the way because the gloves are so small. It's hard to block with your glove on your cheek. Yes. In boxing, it's kind of easier, and I'm learning how to use the gloves as more of a defensive tool and not have to make such big movement, which in turn kind of makes you less tired because you're not having, I'm not having to move a 270-pound guy out of the way. The gloves allow for more in-tight fighting, which I also find really interesting.
Do you see this like a one-time thing, or do you think, hey, I can box 2, 3, 4 times?
I would like to box several times. I'd like to also concurrently run it with my MMA career. I'm 41. I'll be 42 here in May. I mean, you know, I'm the healthiest I've ever been. I went down and I went to Colombia with BioAccelerator about 18 months ago. I did the whole stem cell. I'm going to go back after this fight. You know, my nutrition, I'm with Darren. I have a guy named Steve Date here in Vegas, training with Nick Best, you know, and then obviously Syndicate, you know, all the guys there, John Wood. I've really surrounded myself with a lot of people that have helped rejuvenate myself. You know, 2 years ago, if you would have asked me, I was getting ready to retire. I was only just, you know, I was like, well, you know, maybe one more, maybe this. After the Roy fight, I was like, maybe we'll just call it a career. And then my daughter starting to fight really inspired me to want to be back in the gym with her because, you know, I'm in the gym, I'm training with her, showing her moves. And the next thing I know, it's like, well, I feel weird trying to show her something unless I can do it. So then I started getting myself back in shape and lifting weights and doing a lot more flexibility and mobility stuff. And then as that started coming in, like I'm in the gym sparring with other pros and having, you know, my way with them. I'm like, well, you know what? This would be kind of, you know, this is fun again because I'm not waking up in bed, sitting there for 30 minutes staring at the ceiling trying to get out. You know, my body, this is the healthiest I've been in a long time.
When you go through your career, and I mentioned in Spanish, you are 2-time heavyweight champion. Are you happy with your career, Fran? Are you happy, or you sense that something slipped of your fingers?
Oh, no, I'm not happy with my career. I could have done so much better with my intelligence and my athletic ability. I really fell short of what my potential was. But what makes me happy about that is that it's a learning lesson for my children. My children are also extremely gifted, extremely smart. And I can let them know that, like, hey, you guys are gifted, you're smart, you're fast, you're stronger than everybody. So was I. And I won titles, but I also lost fights because, you know, nothing replaces hard work. And now, you know, as I've gotten older, I work harder than pretty much anybody at the gym.
Wow.
But, you know, I've said that probably to a couple of my guys now. I'm like, man, if I'd have figured this out 15 years ago, I'd still be the undefeated heavyweight champ of the world. But, you know, hey, lessons learned. And I think that's part of being family and being part of a tribe is that the mistakes I make now, my children, you know, my father made mistakes that I corrected upon and improved upon, you know, and then now I've made mistakes and now I'm going to tell my kids, hey, this is what I did wrong. Now you can make it better. And they're going to find new ways to mess up that I didn't. And then they can improve that for their children. And that way we constantly evolve as a tribe.
As ex-champ, 2-time champ, how do you see the state of the heavyweight division with this Francis Ngannou victory against Stipe Miocic? Do you think someone can beat him right now? Do you think that eventually John Jones could fight him?
Yeah, I think that, you know, Ngannou is always going to have a glaring weakness that he's not the most well-rounded fighter. He's, you know, I don't want to say a one-trick pony because he did show a sprawl and some good ground control in his last fight. But, you know, he's just not very proficient at grappling. And so, you know, Miocic was a much more well-rounded fighter, but he made a vital mistake against Ngannou. And so, you know, do I think there's guys that could beat Ngannou? Yeah. I still think Derek Lewis beats Ngannou. I think because he has a ton of heart, has a phenomenal chin, and he hits really, really hard. I think Francis is a little bit intimidated of Derek. I think that's a fight that if right now, if Derek said, hey, I'd fight him, like, that's a bad matchup for Francis. I think that's why the UFC's not really trying to bring up Derek's name in that conversation. Also, too, speaking of John Jones, John has a better understanding of range than Francis. He's a better striker as far as technique-wise. Obviously, he doesn't have the power that Ngannou has. Nobody does. But he's able to throw kicks so he could stay out of the punching range, staying far away. And if Francis jumps in to try to close distance, I feel that John's just wrestling is phenomenal. I mean, hell, John will just run on all four in a bear crawl, run towards him and grab his legs, and the fight's over with, you know? So, I mean, not that look, if Francis and Miocic fight again, I'd still probably even vote for Miocic. I still think that he's the better fighter. I just think that it's with Francis, his power just makes it to where he's always in a fight in the first 2 rounds. If he touches you, you go out. So he has, just a God-given ability to hit people really, really hard. But as far as, unbeatable, no, there's too many holes in his game. If people get him out of that second round, he's going to always have a hard time.
Yes, for finish, coming back to your fight, what do you want your fans, the people who follow combat sport, want to see in you against Sean Cunningham? What kind of statement do you want to give April 17?
Well, I think that the same thing I always want to stand up for is that I'm just a warrior, and not just a warrior because, some people think that means just somebody who goes out there and fights hard, but not only fights hard, but fights smart and brings great tactics. I go out there and I came to fight. I came came for victory. And so that means a lot to me. And that's basically, I always tell my kids that, look, you can't help whether you win or lose because the other person's not working with you. And there's circumstances and fate sometimes doesn't work in your favor. But you can always control how you fight the game, who you are. And so that's what I plan on doing.
Well, Fran, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us and good luck. April 17, my friend.
Thank you so much. Sorry for calls coming in. Thought I turned it off.
Good luck, my friend. Thank you.
Okay, man. Thank you.